course, this is a tough act to follow, so I'll do my very best. I have help. This is my cousin, Alan, known to everyone as YaYa. Please call him YaYa after this. So welcome again to this wonderful event. I'm Paul and Lizzie's Yenta and Nancy. The Yenta is the matchmaker, and for those of you who aren't familiar with that tradition, it's usually done intentionally, but I actually match them unintentionally. I'm here today. It's all right. He's a little overrated today. I'm here today to tell you the answer to the question that many of you have asked me. How did Lizzie call me? This is the tender and romantic story of their meeting. Don't get too excited. You haven't heard my version of the story yet. Let's just So this is the semi-true story of how Paul and Liz met. I inadvertently introduced them because I was standing next to Paul when he first laid eyes on Liz, and it was clear that he was completely smitten. I'll never forget that truly touching moment. They both happened to be at my house for a barbecue party, and Paul was admiring a small wall-mounted knick-knack rack I just installed on the wall. And unfortunately, just as Liz walked by for the first time, Paul happened to say, "Nice rack." The misunderstanding was upsetting at the time, but we all had a good laugh about it. Diagnosis was chronic infatuation and incurable love, and his prognosis was for a long and happy life together. In fact, Paul was already planning their courtship, this wedding, and their retirement together, but unfortunately, Liz's diagnosis was that Paul appeared to be an idiot and she wanted nothing to do with it. However, flash forward many months later to when Liz finally came around to Paul's way of thinking, and she decided to give him a chance. We didn't know why, but she did. They had a few more issues to overcome, however. Due to some initial confusion, Liz thought that Paul's last name was Butter, not Crotter, which really excited her, since many of us know that Liz is in love with butter. In fact, she's the only person I've ever met who actually puts butter on her salad and pizza, although not necessarily at the same time. Maybe. In the beginning, as Paul followed her around like a lovesick puppy, Liz eventually realized that they shared many things in common, like an appreciation for good wine, great food, family, and salsa dancing. But it remained a mystery to the rest of us if Liz fully understood how difficult it would be to live with a pediatrician who is much less mature than his patients. The challenge of this became abundantly clear when Liz saw Paul head off to work for the first time, proudly wearing his favorite Homer Simpson socks and his I'm with stupid tie ensemble, holding a copy of the Best Bathroom Humor joke book in his hand. Nevertheless, thank gods, both of them eventually ended up in love, and yes, for those of you who know, that was a Battlestar Galactica reference.
Sorry.
We got another picture of and now, Liz sometimes even allows Paul to lead when they dance, but only sometimes. Most importantly, though, Liz is willing to laugh at Paul's endless supply of really, and trust me, really stupid daddy jokes, as Ayla tested. And she doesn't seem to mind his interest in creating new forms of vegetables. Who amongst us will ever forget this year's cross between a pumpkin and a zucchini, the well-known pumpkini? This is true, by the way. It's true. And she seems fine with his enthusiasm for brewing gallons of homemade beer, with lots of sampling parties, of course. And of course, she's willing to bail him out of jail when he starts stealing palm fronds from the local Catholic church every year. Because they both value communication. When Paul asked Liz to marry her and she initially said no, he thoughtfully replied, "Let me say this in a different way." And Liz seemed to have no problem getting Paul accustomed to the language of love that she understands best. Neatly formatted rows and columns in her spreadsheets designed for every event or occasion. glasses, even if they're in his hand or on his face. And Liz is forever forgetting which Starbucks she left her cell phone at. There's so many of them. In fact, I believe that this issue is the only thing that isn't perfect about their relationship. So I've come up with a way to both solve this problem and bring them closer together. And I hope this helps. I might not be entirely accurate about what brought them together, but I'm certain of what keeps them in love. They're both magnificent, generous, and caring people who truly deserve the happiness they share. And to this, whoops,
no glass.
I raise my glass. I raise my glass and ask all of you to say, L'chaim!